Hey guys, it's Bethany with AB Cute Creations here, and today I'm not really going to show you a tutorial. I'm just going to go through some of the really neat options that you have if you wanted to make a Weatherghan or a temperature Afghan. So grab your supplies and come join me for this video. For this video you will need yarn. For my blanket I worked with Red Heart soft yarn in a rainbow of colors, and I also used the Karen Simply Soft for my yellow. A crochet hook. I'm using size I in a 5.5 millimeter. Scissors. Tapestry needle for weaving in your ends. And you will need your pattern. I've printed one off from weatherghan.com, and I'm going to link to the information down below. If you want to watch a tutorial on how to do the stitch I used for this specific blanket, you can check it out down below, and it's the moss stitch, and I did a video on how you can do that to create this blanket. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the really unique and creative things you can do with this blanket. This is called a Weatherghan or a temperature Afghan. And as you can see, it kind of it doesn't seem to really follow a pattern. It's got a lot of variety of color in it. What it is you're looking at each row is a representation of the temperature for each day for 6 months. I was going to do a full year, but it honestly became a little bit too long. I feel like the length that it is just right. I tried to do a crib size blanket, so for mine I chained on 126 chains. If you want to copy this exact pattern, it really does make a nice little lap blanket. I made it for my son, so I didn't want a blanket that would fit his full bed, and this worked out perfectly for me. If you wanted to do a full year, I would plan on it fitting a full length of a bed for sure, and then I would absolutely make it wider. So you could do a full year for a twin bed, and then just add on some more chains, and I'll put in the description down below, I will give you all of my references and different tools that I found helpful for this project. So one of the things that I found really helpful was this chart from the Crochet Crowd. So I will put that up here, and then I will also link to it down below. But it kind of helped me get a good idea of how wide I would want to go for my blanket, how many chains I would need to do. And then my other resource that I used was Weatherghan.com, and that helped me actually create my pattern. As you can see from my Weatherghan pattern, it shows you, it automatically calculates out what the temperature was on the day that, on the date range, the year that you enter, and then it also coincides with a table that gives you the color and the temperature range, so whatever yarn you should use for that specific day in your pattern. It's a really great resource, and I highly recommend it. Now if you're looking for something a little bit less traditional, like let's say you don't want to go with the high temperatures, there are some other options that you have. So here are some of my tips before you jump in to do a temperature Afghan. And I will link this in the details down below, just to kind of give you a good outline of some of the things to consider before you start your blanket. I would definitely recommend using that Weatherghan website to come up with your pattern if you are looking to use the high temperatures for the day in your area. And the highs are great. It really gives you a good variety. As you can see in my blanket, I have all the colors, so I've hit at least a little bit, not too many purples, but I started, again, mine's only 6 months long. If I had gone and done a wider search for days, then I would definitely have more of a variety there, and more purples being in Wisconsin. So if you don't want to do the highs, You can actually also use the average temps of your area. If you don't like all of the variety, you can see where I have just one stripe here and there, and it kind of doesn't blend slowly. It kind of jumps around a little bit. That's what you're gonna have if you just do a specific date range instead of the averages. Now the averages are actually pretty awesome if you want to do a general location. Let's say you're in a long distance relationship and you want to make a blanket that reminds you of your significant other. One idea is to do the average temperatures for their location. That way, every time you snuggle up with that blanket, it makes you think of them because it is significant to their vicinity, to their location, and not necessarily to a specific date range. So you can look at it and just think of your partner and where they are. And then you could also make them one of your location of the average temperatures. And then it's just a nice little reminder. Another thing you could do is the lows, of course. So if you're going to actually do the average temps or the lows, what I would recommend is that you search them out on a different website, and then you would actually have to start tracking them. And this is kind of what I used for mine, and I like that. I used some colored markers and put them next to each temperature, and yeah, you have to sit down then and write out each specific temperature. So there might be a little bit more work involved, but in the end it could be more worth it if you want a more blended look, like I said, for the average temperatures. So another tip that I have for you is, if you want, you don't necessarily have to start on January 1st. You could just start January 1st and end December 31st. If it was a momentous year and you just want to capture that in a blanket, then I say, hey, start January 1st and December 31st, keep it simple. However, you can also do something else. You can start the day someone was born, and give them a blanket at their 1-year birthday. You could do the first year that a couple was married. You could do any other special occasion, and then you could present it to them 1 year later. Now for patterns, there's actually many different patterns you could use. You could do a nice corner to corner Afghan. You could do a granny square Afghan. You could do a zigzag pattern. You can do straight across. Again, the one that I used for my blanket is moss stitch, and I really love the way that it turned out because it kind of looks like the temperatures are bleeding into each other. You know, each day kind of blends into the next, and I really liked that look, so that's what I was going for when I chose the moss stitch. But you can do whatever stitch you want. Just keep in mind that if you're going thicker than a single crochet, then it will end up quite thick and add length to your blanket. You can pick your own color chart. If you don't like reds and oranges, don't put them in your blanket. Pick a different color. You can pick all different levels of lavender and light purples and dark purples and plums and grays, and have each one represent a different temperature range for your blanket. It's completely up to you and a great way to customize it so you can get the colors you want but still have the changing look of the temperature changes. You can separate each month or season with a neutral row. In my blanket, I actually chose to separate out each season by a gray stripe. So I did 2 rows of just gray in between each season, and that way it kind of visually pulls it in. I can see clearly, okay, spring starts here, and then this is where summer began. And since I only did 6 months, I don't know if I would have done the gray stripes again. Originally I had planned on doing a full year, but again, once I got going, I knew that would just be way too long. But it's totally up to you. You don't have to include it at all. I did also tie it in by putting the gray around the border, but that's what the gray is in my blanket. It's to separate it off. You could get really cool and creative with it though. Like I said, if you want to separate off every month, or season, or whatever you want to do. So that's another great idea. For those of you watching this who are more of the temperate zones, you might want to consider adjusting your temperature chart to get more color variation. As you can see here, I've hit the extremes. I've got below 22 degrees Fahrenheit represented by the purple, and I also have 89 degrees and above represented by the red. So I've hit all varying degrees on this chart. If you're in, say, Florida, you may not hit all those. I would hope you would not hit all of those temperature ranges. If you're hitting below 22 degrees as a high, we've got problems. So what I would recommend is maybe adjusting so that instead of using every 10 degrees, for example, to separate color changes, you could do every 5 degrees. And you could up your extremes. So if you regularly hit 105 degrees where you are, do that as your extreme. Hit 105 and above as an extreme temperature, and maybe do 100 to 105 as your orange color, and then I would go down to, say, 95 to 100 to do the yellow, and so on. So that way you still get some variation in your blanket, but you're not going to be stuck with all reds and oranges and yellows and nothing else. And again, if you want that, that's fine. If you want to keep with the warmer colors and just do those, and you don't care that there won't be much variation in it, stick with that. It works. That's the great thing about this blanket. You can completely customize it. You could have 10 different people do the same date range for their blanket and have totally different blankets depending on what they want to choose for their color scheme, how they separate it off for their temperatures, and different patterns. So this is a really fun one. I didn't realize how much I was going to love this blanket until I finished it. And I ended up using the Red Heart soft yarn for this, and it worked up nice and thick and cozy. It will definitely be comfy to snuggle with. Another tip I have, and this one might be more tedious and some of you might groan at this, but I would highly recommend that you consider saving your ends for the end to weave them in instead of crocheting over them. Now this one is just for my son, so I crocheted over them, and you can see where some of the little edges are fraying and coming out. And I really don't like that. It does not give a clean look. I knew that would happen, and again, it's just for my family, so I didn't worry about that, but that might bother you. So I suggest you definitely consider saving all those ends, and that is by far my least favorite part. If anybody knows me, they know I hate weaving in ends. That's the worst. But with this project, if you want a nice clean look, especially with how neat and unique this pattern can really come out when all is said and done, you might want that clean look, and I would highly recommend that you weave in those ends. Okay guys, so that's it for me today. Let me know what you guys think down below. Would you ever make a blanket like this? I honestly never thought that I would. The first time I saw it, I kind of thought, oh, I don't know if I would like having that much variation, but when you see it all pulled together, it really is unique, and it's a neat blanket, a way to get all the colors in there, and it's really just a nice blanket to cuddle up with. I love it. So I highly recommend it. I would love to see if you guys have other projects. Okay guys, so that's it for me today. Let me know what you guys think down below. Would you ever make a temperature Afghan or a Weatherghan? Do you like all the color variations? Would you change them up? Would you use a different color scheme, or would you stick with the traditional? Let me know what you guys think. There's so many different ways to make this your own creation, and that's why I love it. Tell me what you guys like about it, what you don't like about it. If you'd ever make it as a gift for somebody or for yourself, I'd love to hear some input. As always, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you have any other questions, let me know down below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you like what you saw. I will continue to try to bring you new stitches and new projects, different ideas for things that you can try on your own that maybe you haven't thought of yet. If you have any suggestions for me, leave them down below. Thanks, guys!